Yiratzon Parashat Kitisa 5779. Yiratzon the Limud Shebedor Fuat Kol HaCholim Uvetocham Tanya Madoda Magalit Yosef Yair ben Aviv Harav Sivan ben Sima Betoch Kol Shach Israel Uli Lui Nishmat Chaveri Mori v'Rabbi Reb Eitan Eliezer ben Mordechai. A week ago, I lost my, closest friends, and I wanted to start each year from now on, B'ezrat Hashem, with a character trait that I received from Ethan. So the one character trait I just wanted to add into this week was a love of children. Baruch Hashem, me and Tanya had a lot of opportunities to spend our 3 years in Toronto, in our home away from home in the Lax house. And every time we would go downstairs, we would find Ethan sort of like playing with my children, but it was often just sitting next to Oritan or Adiel and engaging them in one of the deepest conversations. And I would always think like what caused Ethan to like love children so much. And I think that what children have different than adults is that they don't have so many masks. So they're pretty much real, and they have more dreams than ideas. So like a child is just full of dreams. And I think that Ethan sort of lived that life, and therefore he connected to children because there were no masks and there were so many dreams. So that's just the character trait that I wanted to start off this year with. When we enter into Parshat Kitisa, we enter into the darkest moment of Jewish history. There is no real way to fathom the failure that we went through, that we were on the top of a mountain, so close, and in such a short amount of time fell so low. And obviously there are so many different understandings and reasons and ideas what could cause a nation to reach such a low level after being on such a high level. But what I want to try and understand is the story immediately before and immediately after the sin of the Egel, because I think it gives us a new interpretation of how to look at this story. So if we look in the Torah, we'll see that the story immediately before Chet HaEgel is the story of Shabbat. And that's in Perek Lamed Aleph, Pasuk Yud Bet, we hear about Shabbat. And immediately after the Chet of the Egel, when we go to Perek Lamed Hey, Pasuk Aleph, again, we hear the story of Shabbat. So what surrounds the story of the Egel is this idea of the mitzvah of Shabbat. So the obvious question, Shabbat is a great mitzvah, it's a beautiful mitzvah, but what's the reason that the covering and the surrounding of the story of the Egel before is Shabbat and after is Shabbat, and how does that affect our understanding of the story of Chet HaEgel? And so the Sfat Emet in the year 1871, he says, what's the idea of Shabbat? Why is Shabbat so essential? And he says that you have to understand that the idea of Shabbat is V'al Pia Pashut B'chinat Shabbat. He says over here, Inyan Shabbat hu aliyat kol hanivreim. The idea of Shabbat is to recognize the level that you could reach. So what he means by that is that during the week, we're very much immersed in things that we need to do. We need to work, we need to walk, we need to do. And so our lives are very much centered around necessity. What happens on Shabbat is that everything you need to do, you can't do. You can't cook on Shabbat, you can't turn on lights on Shabbat, you can't change things on Shabbat, and therefore Shabbat, you can't do anything that you need to. And so what's left to do on Shabbat is only things that you want to do. Not that obviously you can't do whatever you want, but the idea of Shabbat is to eliminate the things that you need to do, the work that you need to do, and to enable you to reflect and to internalize life. And so says the Sfat Emet, what's the real essential idea of Shabbat is aliyat kol hanivraim. It's to recognize where can you get to, where can you reach. And I think that if we ask ourselves the question we asked before, why is Shabbat surrounding the story of the Egel? The answer is very simple. Because the question is not what we did, but what caused us to get there. How could a nation reach a level that they abandoned such greatness and reach such a level of low and disconnected? And I think that the answer is that we forgot Shabbat. That we were so involved in the idea of Naseh, because that's what we said at Ma'amad Har Sinai, that we'll do and we'll do this and we'll do this, and we were so involved in what we need to do that what we forgot to remember where we want to get to. And I think that what we're learning by Shabbat surrounding the story of the Egel is that usually failure doesn't stem from failure. It stems from forgetting where you want to go. And as I just end this Parsha idea, and to reconnect it back to Ethan, I think that one of the biggest voids I have is to try and figure out, what do I do now when the world is shattered and broken and challenged and missing a person that I always say to his friends. I was speaking to Yadin Kashitsky and I said to him, Yadin, listen, like, it's so difficult with Ethan because you have to be with him to understand him, because there was something different about his presence. And without his presence, it's so hard to explain. But I think that what Ethan gave, especially to me in all of our Charutot, were this feeling of Shabbat. It always reminded me where to go. And then I could deal with the actions much better. So my bracha entering into Shabbat, after such a shattered week of the Shiva for Ethan, is that we can understand and be capable of getting to that state where we could recognize that our ability to remember and live and understand Ethan's worlds and the strength that he gave us, it will enable us to not get lost in the world of the things that we need to do. Shabbat Shalom.